What's your biggest flex that you'll never tell anyone?
When my girlfriend and I worked at the same bar, I threw a coaster at her like a frisbee. It arced over her and like 20 customers only to land perfectly on the neat stack of other coasters like 50 feet away. It was so beep cool, but nobody noticed except one customer who I later had to kick out for taking a nap on the bar. No point in telling anybody, but I look back fondly on that moment. Edit, I'm pleased to see that I'm not the only unrecognized Jedi. Neat stories, everyone.
In my public speaking class, one had to give a speech on procrastination. I wrote the speech an hour before class. In my feedback notes I was told I had great preparation.
I saw a lizard in the middle of a busy road. I bent down on the side of the road and called for it as I put my hands out, and he ran straight into my arms. I carried him to safety and didn't think anything of it until I heard a stranger behind me go, "Did y'all see that beep? She's a lizard whisperer." Man, I wish there was another witness because I bet I looked cool.
Woman in my office had a fairly long piece of TP attached to her shoe, and I stepped on it and detached it from her shoe. I felt like a superhero. I still feel like a superhero about it.
I saw Elton John in Vegas. Red Piano Tour. During Benny and the Jets, I can whistle extremely loudly. I nailed the whistle part that is on live version of the song that plays on the radio. He smiled.
I can make the price of any stock go down simply by buying it.
When I was in high school, we did a toy drive with our homeroom classes around the holidays, where each class was assigned a family in need to donate money to or buy toys for. By the last day, almost none of the toys had been bought from the kids' lists. We just collected a modest chunk of money for the family. I went home and told my mom that I didn't need anything, but I would like to get some of those things the kids asked for. My mom and dad talked. They'd both grown up poor and knew the money we'd collected would probably be used on necessities, not toys. So my mom and I went out and came back home with about $300 worth of toys the kids had asked for. I brought them in early before school started and submitted them and the receipts for them to my homeroom teacher. Later on, one of my classmates, who I had great disdain for ever since the 3rd grade when he blatantly stole my new pencil, came in and announced he was making the biggest contribution of our class with a $40 donation. The teacher made eye contact with me, but I remained neutral and shrugged, so the teacher didn't correct him, just smiled and said thank you to him. I figure he needed that affirmation more than me, and I never liked being center of attention anyway. Edit. Thanks everyone for your kind words and stories. 14-year-old me, and her parents, never thought so many people would think so highly of their small act of charity.
I keep light-up Skechers under my bed to walk around the house at night.
I have gotten to a place in my life that unless I tell someone, it is nearly impossible to tell I have autism. Edit. Thank you so much for the awards.
Had a class where the professor was pissed that everyone did really bad on an essay and was yelling at the class. He said that aside from one person who got a 97%, he was disappointed with everyone there. I had the 97%.
I won a YouTuber's writing competition. My story got seen by 100k people, which was cool. But all the other winners got a trip to VidCon for a live reading of their stories. I didn't because I don't have social media. Yes, I'm still salty about it, 7 years later.
I raised $100,000 for a scholarship fund in the memory of my deceased twin brother. Since that time, we've given away over 200 scholarships.
I made a Minecraft tutorial video when I was 15 that got 20k views. Edit. Link for the note, it's in Dutch.
I lived with my grandparents my whole life, who lived in a small little house across the street from a big fancy neighborhood development. They lived in the same house for 40 years before the development. It was a very bad hill on a busy road with a neighborhood entrance at the bottom of the hill, which was across the street from our house. Me and my grandpa would pull people out of wrecks all the time. Saved a bunch of lives, but sadly saw over 10 people die on that hill growing up. The big fancy people in that neighborhood would always bring us food and gifts. They called my grandpa the gatekeeper.
I wrote a popular and successful fanfic years and years ago. I still live on that high. Edit. I am considering revealing it maybe.
I am on the top page of the high scores for runecrafting in the game Old School RuneScape. Edit. Since my comment made it to our 2007 scape, if any mods from our 2007 scape see this comment, please unban me from the subreddit sad face.
I have a no gag reflex. This will go to my grave. Married man with 3 kids.
I ran over a half marathon at night for 5 months every day. I shouldn't be proud because that was my lowest point mentally, but I was. Ada, Jesus, I went to sleep and woke up to 80 notifs. Thanks. I wanted to add that it was because of an obsession with exercise, for those who were confused as to why I don't want to be proud of it. It wasn't healthy and beep up my body for a little while.
I have enough old, valuable Magic the Gathering cards to buy a car. A new, really nice car. I don't tell anyone IRL because they're from when I was young and collected them, and my current social circle would think it's kid, nerd stuff and wouldn't understand. Doesn't get me down, though. Current plan is to hold on to them until they go up enough over time to match my mortgage balance, then use them to pay off my house. Edit, I appreciate all the comments. I currently actively keep up with the MTG market, and am a pretty close follower of the MTG Finance sub. As far as the makeup of the cards, RL cards, mostly from 93, 94, and complete sets from Urza's block and earlier.
Whenever I think about telling this story, it always comes out with a, "that happened" type of feel, so I have kept it to myself. Every day in junior year of high school I would eat my lunch, stand up, and toss my trash toward the wide-mouthed trash can about 25 feet away. Every day. I would miss. I would then routinely do the walk of shame to get it all thrown away. This went on until the spring, it was April or May, I forget when exactly, and I stood up and threw my trash at the can. What do you know, after a few months I made it. It was a small victory, but I did an air fist and then made eye contact with a kid who was in the marching band with me. Apparently he had watched me do this ritual every day and was ready to celebrate with me. So he began to slow clap. Then, the rest of his table clapped. Not knowing why, but it was high school, so who cared? Then the effect spread until the entire cafeteria, about 1,500 students, were giving thunderous applause, only 2 of us knowing why. I took a bow and then sat down and everyone just went back to eating their lunch like nothing happened, because nothing really happened. It was a weird rush.
My debit card went through for a really large amount and the lady behind the counter had been being so smug and irritating for so long, and then she tried to deny my card because it wouldn't go through for that amount, and I asked her to just please try it. The look on her face when it went through was so satisfying. May I never make that large a purchase again.
I haven't done opiates in 6 months.
Serious. I can count all of the syllables in every sentence during conversation. Then I can tell the person I was talking to the amount of syllables they had just said. It's due to a weird response from my social anxiety. I don't tell anyone Earl because it's just weird and out of place to do so. They would call me crazy. I even have some common sentences and phrases memorized so I can take solace in the fact that I already know the syllables. Edit, played video games for some time and came back to, oh my flipping goodness, that's a lot of awards. My most awarded and upvoted comment of all time is about me counting syllables. Reddit is weird. Edit 2, FAQ. I can hold conversations with zero issue. The syllables go to the back basically. For example, during a test you just kind of know the answer and automatically bubble the answer without thinking about it, same with retrieving the syllable count. It's really satisfying to me if the syllables end in the tens. Like 10, 20, etc. I'm good at poetry normally and it does play a part usually. On the bright side, it's only mild cognitive dissonance if it didn't end in the tens place. I've never tried a haiku, but I will in the morning. Edit 3, I gotta go to sleep now, it's almost 2 AM lol. I answered as many as I could, will try and respond again in the morning. Sorry I had a late start from playing GTA all night.
I never get bored, ever. It's a useful superpower when I'm stuck in certain situations.
I discovered, verified, and reported a critical security flaw in a US Army computer system, which was then quickly patched. Seems especially relevant these days, though it was over a year ago. For future reference, on the off chance that you ever find something similar, DoD actually has a HackerOne page.
I bought some then relatively worthless Apple stock because I thought I'd be able to eBay the stock certificate with the rainbow Apple logo when the company went out of business. My investment guy just thinks I'm really clever. I've not corrected him.
My biggest flex I keep quiet is that I made right about $15,000 playing a video game, semi-professionally. Now is the time where people think stuff like that is cool, but 2 years ago when it was happening I got made fun of by my girlfriend the one time I mentioned it. Edit so everyone knows. This is an XGF as to her making money playing video games was lame, but sex with other guys was still cool to her. I ended that faux relationship.
I'm on level 4000 in Candy Crush.
Paid off $40K in debt during quarantine due to no more daycare costs for 3 kids, and better paying job for the wife. Also dropped body fat from 14% to 7% using my ghetto-ass home gym while everyone was complaining about the quarantine 15. Went from having one family meal a week to almost daily. I don't tell anyone this obviously because there are people going through tough times, especially family and close friends, and I can empathize with that as it hasn't been completely smooth and there were some stressful moments. But I am proud of what my wife and I were able to do in a relatively short amount of time, but haven't shared any of this at the risk of alienating anyone.
I beat morbid obesity, which spiraled into a violent battle with anorexia, which I also beat. I eventually went on to get into modeling, weightlifting, and more. Compare pictures of me now, with pictures of me from 5 years ago, with pictures of me from 10 years ago, and they all look like ***, completely different people.
I was in the grocery store and saw an older woman standing in the aisle comparing what was in her cart to what was in her wallet, obviously counting to see if she could afford everything. Based on her body language as she walked away, I could tell that the answer was no. So I took a 20 out and walked up to her and said, "Ma'am, when you were over there just a second ago this fell out of your wallet." I handed her the bill, and just walked away so she wouldn't be embarrassed if she figured out I was lying. I did hear her say thank you, so I half turned and told her you're welcome, have a nice night. It was only $20, but I think it made a difference to her, and that felt amazing.
I got out of bed. Again. Edit. Thank you all for your kindness.
I dropped a fry from my mouth and slapped it to try and save it. It landed back in the box.
I've been clean 6 months off heroin for the first time in 5 years.
At one point I could sing along perfectly to We Didn't Start the Fire. I still know most of the words, but I'm always so embarrassed to sing in front of other people, lol.
I was quoted on some literary website one time for something I said off the cuff in an argument. I also got to play a few shows with some of my favorite bands of all time, but I'm so far removed from that music scene now that no one I know would ever care about it except for me.
I pulled over when I saw a house on fire one morning. Ran over and a woman was crying that her child was inside. I ran into the smoke and fire, down a hallway, followed the crying. Found the child and carried her outside to her mom. I waited with them until the FD arrived, then left. Was late for work and got yelled at. Didn't say anything to anyone. Edit. Wow, thanks, everyone. This was a long time ago, early 90s. I was kind of a screw-up at that job, so I was on thin ice. My supervisor was a dick. He always yelled at me when I was in the office, so I avoided the office when I could. The old woman was totally flat-lined, full panic. The house was really smoky with solid flames out of the rear. As I turned down the hallway, I could see that the kitchen was really going. I was in and out of the front so quick, I didn't have a chance to talk any sense to myself before the deed was done.
My coworkers don't know I was severely abused as a child. Became a raging drug user and alcoholic and moved out at age 17. Somehow went to college and have an extremely respectable job where I look normal. Or at least I think I look passable.
I can build a Lego set in less years than it gives you to do so.
Well, I ain't telling you either. Nice try though.
As a kid, saved a kid from ongoing child abuse by his parents. Was staying over there and had met them only briefly due to them being one of several families hosting us inner city kids out in the rich suburbs while we worked with their kids on a local theater production. This was decades ago FYI. Well, it didn't take the whole week we were in town for me to realize how scared he was, and despite feeling guilty about waiting to report his stories until after our trip, I was told that his parents were investigated soon after and he was moved to other family. I don't know, feels like a flex and also a tragedy at the same time, since who knows if he ended up any better off. I hope so. Edit. Just wanted to thank everyone so much for the feedback and assurance that being uprooted to a new family may suck initially but is certainly better than sitting around hoping things ever get better with your abusive existing family. Stay safe everyone.
I can suck my own nips.
I should have put a serious tag on this.
I intentionally don't step on ants just because they're cool.
Every time I eat a popsicle, I bite it and chew it. It makes my teeth feel super cold and fresh, it doesn't hurt me at all.
I'm probably the humblest guy on Reddit.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.